Statistical mathematical fact
never has been down.
has broken every single record. There is no asset that has come close.
It's the only thing in the industry that was not touched, that was not hacked, and it never fails doing what it promised in 2009. It's never
What's
failed.
the best performing asset the world has ever seen? And you'll find out that it's Bitcoin.
Bitcoin is going to bring productivity back. No longer will a company that is not really profitable be able to survive. No longer will a company that doesn't really raise the lives of its clients, they're no longer going to exist. Companies will only exist if they contribute true value to the people that they serve. People will no longer exist unless they contribute value to the entire human race that they are a part of. Bitcoin is going to bring a fairer system back to human civilization. And this idea that the government is supposed to take care of you because you're not productive, bullshit. The idea that a company should survive even though it hasn't found a way to survive, that it should be survived by the contributions of others, bullshit. That is not the natural order of things. And so, if the most valuable thing on earth can't ever be stolen again, that it can only be worked for, then all of the efforts that used to be put into stealing value will be put into becoming valuable. All of the efforts that put into people spying on you to try to take your value, to try to confiscate what you have, to try to trick you out of what you have, to try to take what you have. There's a tremendous amount of effort and talent that goes into theft. Do you understand? There's a tremendous amount of energy that goes into theft. All of that energy, all of that talent, all of that intelligence. Some of the most intelligent people are thieves. All of that intelligence will go to the right thing. How do I produce something or be something of extreme value to my fellow man, my fellow Bitcoiner? As a company, how do I make the lives of the people that I serve as a company better, better to the point where they're willing to give me a little piece of the most valuable thing on planet Earth? And in this way, when you get an entire nation, when you get an entire globe, an entire world, an entire species pointing their energy, their talent, their all of what they are toward one goal, how do I become or produce something valuable enough to get Bitcoin? If everybody on earth has to focus on that, then productivity goes through the freaking roof. Bitcoin is not here to eliminate levels. Levels are a permanent part of life, of existence. There will be higher levels than lower levels. This idea that everyone is going to be on the same level is stupid. Nowhere in life, nowhere in nature do you see that. Everyone will have the same right. That's a very different thing. The right to deliver value is the same across every single human being. But value will never be the same across every single human being. And any idea leads to a corrupt form of any idea that refutes that leads to a corrupt form of wokeism that does nothing but destroy society. You don't give trophies to people that lose. You give trophies to people that win. This is at the core of every living thing in the universe, including every cell in our body. And so rights, Bitcoin delivers equal rights to everyone because it doesn't have to accept you. Bitcoin doesn't have you sit down at a desk, fill out a form to get evaluated whether you can gain access to it. It is permissionless. It doesn't care whether you're black, white, what your socioeconomic level is, whether you're female or male, tall or short, fat or skinny. It gives equal access to every single human being on earth. But don't for a second think that that means that everyone's going to be the same. Everyone's not going to be the same. And your value will be dictated by the amount of Bitcoin that your 12 to 24 words represents. And that's just the way it is. That's the way it will always be. Bitcoin does not come to eliminate levels. He who is the most productive will have the most Bitcoin. He who is the most valuable will have the most Bitcoin. And that's the fairest thing on earth. You want more Bitcoin? Get your value up, buddy. You want a different level? Find a way to help others more. Find a way to become more valuable to others. That's the way the world should be structured, not with your freaking hand out. I deserve this because I'm alive or because I'm here. That's the bullshit that needs to stop. And so I believe that if my vision pans out, and I strongly believe that it will be, Bitcoin will bring a world where there will be no more dead weight. It will be survival of the fittest in its rawest form. And that is the way life should be. Zombie companies will be a thing of the past. Do you realize, guys, that the S&P 500 index is the premier metric for all of the, at least the US market's elite? The US market is judged by the S&P 500. These are supposed to be the 500 most elite companies of value on earth. Do you realize that over 35% of the S&P 500 are zombie companies? Do you even know what a zombie company is? It's a freaking welfare recipient. 35% of the S&P 500, it's made up of zombie companies. These are companies that in a real world, not clown world, in a real world would simply not be allowed to exist. They are parasites on the system, and they are allowed to exist. They've been allowed to exist because money became very cheap, became almost worthless, became easy to get. Easy access to money allowed these companies to exist. So because interest rates were so low, the cost of money was so low, all they had to do was refinance the debt to extend their life another 10 years. Their businesses couldn't keep them alive, but they had great debt managers. And so by the time their debt was due, which they couldn't pay because they have no businesses that can generate enough to pay the debt, They would go back to the banker and refinance at a lower rate because 10 years later, the interest rate to borrow money was lower than the last time they borrowed money. So they got a whole swath, a whole brand new reset. And as interest rates fell from 21% all the way down to zero, these zombie companies were just simply allowed to, oh, well, now we borrowed last time at 12%. Now we can borrow and reignite ourselves at 9%. Oh, last time we borrowed at 9%. Now we can just refinance everything we owe at 6%. And they just kept extending their life through borrowed money, not through business, not through coming up with something productive for mankind, not creating something that human beings wanted more than life itself. They they survive because of debt refinancing. That's a freaking crime. Do you know why it's a crime? Because all the people that work for a zombie company should be working for something that is producing something for human life. They should, that talent should be somewhere else delivering value for the human species. Instead, it's delivering its energy and effort. These talented people that are simply paid there are delivering, are giving their whole life to something that's nothing more than a parasite on the system. And so the companies that need this talent, that are doing something of value, don't get the talent because this company is allowed to exist. What's supposed to happen is that if you are not good enough to survive, you're supposed to die. And the talent from the death of your company goes to the companies that are doing something. And that is a healthy process. Your body cleans out its dead cells and replenishes the space that your dead cells were occupying with brand new cells that contribute to your overall health and longevity. And if your bad, destructive cells were allowed to stay, your life would be shortened and shortened and shortened. Everywhere in life, we have this message. We hear this, we see this message that the bad must be wiped out. And our corrupt system has allowed the bad to survive. Governments today, many governments should not exist today, but they exist how? They extend their life by giving out free rewards to stay in power. The Romans did this. They did this through giving out free bread at the games, free food and drink at the games, to, to stay in favor with the people, to extend their very existence of power. And this ultimately led to a problem because more and more people who were trying to earn an honest living out in the farms outside of Rome, they began to say, why am I tilling the ground several miles outside of Rome, breaking my back when my neighbor left to go to Rome to get free food and free drink and entertainment to watch the games? And many people that were working left their businesses, left their farms, left what they were doing that was productive to human beings. Raising cattle, chickens, whatever it was, they left that because of the free bread and drink at the games. The chariots would come after a victory, and thousands would crowd around as the victory lap of the chariots would throw free bread to the crowds. Through this process of allowing people to survive without working, without delivering something to their fellow man, without being productive, extended Rome's empire to 1,000 years. But what a lot of people don't know is that Rome's power peaked at 300 years. If you were to study the lifespan of most empires, they peak out around anywhere between 150 and 300 years. And Rome was no exception. They peaked out at 300 years and they remained in power for 700 more years, but the power was waning for 700 years. It was a straight downtrend for 700 years, but the final domino to fall, the final end, was pushed out because of this trick of non-productive rewards. And if you were to look at governments today, how do governments that should not exist, that aren't creating better lives for their citizens, that aren't delivering, how are they still in power? They're still in power by giving out freebies, by allowing zombie companies and zombie people to survive. It extends the false life that should not be there, but it doesn't eliminate it. At some point, the final domino falls. At some point, that system fails. Bitcoin has come into our lives to deliver the concept of value again. It has come back into our lives to bring back the value of one's word, to eliminate the need to trust that someone is going to do right by you. Human beings are the most unreliable entities in existence today. If I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. You don't know a human being in your life today who has not failed you. Every human being in your life has failed you, whether it's your kids, whether it's your parents, whether it's your neighbors, whether it's your relatives, whether it's your employer, your employees. Every single human being has failed you in one form or another. Bitcoin has come back into our lives to eliminate the need to trust anything. Trust is the need for trust is a sign of a failed system. You should never need to trust. Trust implies that I don't know. You should always know. Bitcoin has come to eliminate systems of I don't know. So therefore, I must trust that this person will do the right thing. I must trust that this person has what they say they have. I must trust that this person will do what they promise they will do. Bitcoin's eliminating all of that. There is no trust in a Bitcoin world. There's your word, and your word becomes the most valuable, the most trustworthy thing in existence today if your word is Bitcoin. And if these words and if this trust, if these words, if this value can ever be stolen, can't ever be taken, can't ever be confiscated, can't ever be manipulated, and if this value can only grow every 4 years of existence, then it becomes the most sought after thing on planet Earth. And as the most sought after thing on planet Earth, it raises a nation, it raises a world, it raises an entire global citizenry that is predicated on one central question: how do I become more valuable to my fellow man? And this is the question that we need again in my opinion, for the whole human race. Instead of what's in it for me, how do I become more valuable to my fellow brother, my fellow man? Because if I don't, I die. And that is why I believe Bitcoin brings about one of the most explosive periods of productivity in the human experience. This is why I am so religious like about Bitcoin. I don't shy away from that term. I don't even take offense at it because it's worth something being religious for.
My name is Oliver Velez, and I am your 13%er Bitcoiner. Be safe out there, and until next time.